The air in Barcelona always carried that salty tang from the Mediterranean, mixed with the faint char of paella from street vendors and the bloom of jasmine climbing the wrought iron balconies. I'd come here on a whim 6 months earlier, fleeing the sterile grind of my marketing job in New York, chasing some vague notion of reinvention after my last breakup left me hollowed out. At 28, I was supposed to have it all figured out: stable career, maybe a cat, a rotation of half-decent dates. Instead, I was subletting a cramped flat in the Elborn district, sketching freelance logos on my laptop and pretending the ache in my chest was just jet lag. That's when I met Brianna. She was American too, a painter from Seattle who'd washed up in Spain 3 years prior, trading rainy evergreens for olive groves and canvases splashed with the fiery hues of Andalusian sunsets. We collided, literally, at a tiny tapas bar off La Rambla, where the walls were papered in faded bullfight posters and the air hummed with flamenco guitar from a hidden speaker. I was nursing a vermouth, staring at my phone like it held the secrets to the universe, when she backed into me, her easel bag swinging wild. "Oh God, I'm so sorry," she laughed, steadying herself with a hand on my shoulder. Her touch was electric, brief but warm, and when she turned, those blue eyes hit me like a summer storm, sharp, searching, framed by lashes that curled just so. She was 30, with that effortless California glow, sun-kissed skin, short blonde hair tousled like she'd just rolled out of bed after painting all night, and a smattering of freckles across her nose that made her look younger, softer. She wore a paint-splattered denim shirt rolled to her elbows, revealing forearms toned from lugging supplies through cobblestone alleys. "No harm done," I said, grinning despite myself. "My name's Amara Reyes, daughter of Mexican immigrants who'd raised me in the Bronx with stories of Guadalajara markets and the importance of a good chorizo recipe. I have that classic Latina warmth, dark wavy hair that falls to my mid-back, brown eyes that crinkle when I smile, and curves that my mom always said were blessed by La Virgin." But in that moment, under the bar's amber lights, I felt exposed, like she'd seen right through my tourist facade. We talked for hours that night, the kind of easy flow that skips small talk and dives straight into the marrow. She confessed her love for the way Barcelona's light shifted at golden hour, turning the facades of Gaudi's masterpieces into living paintings. I shared how the city's chaos reminded me of home, the honking Vespas like the subway rush, the old women haggling at La Boqueria like my abuela at the bodega. By closing time, she'd scribbled her number on a napkin, her handwriting loopy and bold. "Dinner? My treat. Let's make this city ours." The first invitation came a week later. Not just dinner, a candlelit affair on her tiny balcony overlooking the port, where the sea whispered against the breakwater and the stars pricked the velvet sky. She'd set the table with mismatched china from a flea market in Gracia, flickering tea lights casting shadows that danced like secrets. Sangria flowed, tart with orange and cinnamon, and we devoured gambas al ajillo, the garlic sizzling on our tongues. Brianna leaned in close, her knee brushing mine under the table, and told me about her ex, a brooding sculptor back in Seattle who'd chipped away at her confidence until she fled across the ocean. "You're brave," I said, tracing the rim of my glass. "Starting over like that." She shrugged, but her eyes held mine a beat too long. "Or running scared. What's the difference?" That night, as I walked home through the humid streets, my flip-flops slapping against the stone, I felt it, the spark. Not fireworks, but embers, warm and insistent. Over the next months, those dinners became ritual. Tuesdays at her place, with views of the W Hotel's sail-like silhouette glowing against the night. Fridays wandering the Barri Gothic, sharing patatas bravas at hole-in-the-wall spots where locals eyed us curiously. She'd text me mid-afternoon, "Sunset painting sesh. Bring wine." And I'd go, every time, drawn to the way she saw the world, fierce, unfiltered, like she was daring the canvas to break her heart. But there were cracks, subtle at first. She'd pull back when our hands lingered, her laugh turning sharp if I teased about the vibes between us. One evening, after a bottle of Rioja and stories of our childhoods, her in rainy trailer parks, me in fire escape strung with Christmas lights, she fixed me with that stormy gaze. "You know, Amara, I don't I mean, I've never really gone there. With women. Her voice was casual, but her fingers twisted the stem of her glass white-knuckled. I nodded, heart sinking like a stone in the harbor. It's cool. Just friends, right? Right, she echoed, but the candlelight caught the flush on her cheeks, and when she walked me to the door, her hug pressed a little too close, her breath warm against my neck. I told myself it was nothing. Friendship in a foreign city, intense by nature. But the invitations kept coming, each more intimate, a picnic in Park Güell at dawn, her head on my lap as we watched the city wake, a midnight stroll along the beach in Barceloneta, toes in the cool sand, her arm looped through mine as waves lapped our ankles. She shared sketches from her latest series, women in flowing dresses, backs turned to the viewer, evoking longing and loss. That's how I feel sometimes, she'd murmur, and I'd ache to pull her close, to whisper that she didn't have to stand alone. By month 3, the embers had flared. We were at her apartment, rain pattering the terracotta roof like impatient fingers. She'd cooked paella from a recipe her abuela smuggled over from Galicia, saffron threads blooming gold in the rice, and we ate cross-legged on her rug, surrounded by half-finished canvases. The power flickered from a storm, plunging us into shadow, and in the glow of her phone's flashlight, she looked at me differently. Vulnerable. Hungry. Brianna, I started, my voice barely above the downpour, why do you keep doing this? The dinners, the nights. If you don't. I don't like women, she cut in, the words tumbling out like she'd rehearsed them in the mirror. But even as she said it, her hand found mine, thumb stroking the back of my palm in slow, deliberate circles. You're different. You make me feel seen, Amara. Like I could paint the whole damn world if I tried. I wanted to believe her. God, I did. But doubt coiled in my gut like the serpents on Gaudi's Park Güell pillars, beautiful, but treacherous. Then what are we? I asked, leaning in, our faces inches apart, the air thick with garlic and unspoken desire. Friends, she whispered, but her eyes said liar, and when she kissed my cheek, soft, lingering, it burned like a brand. The weeks blurred after that. We'd laugh over gelato in the shadow of the Cathedral of Barcelona, her stealing bites from my spoon with a wink that twisted my insides. She dragged me to her studio in Poblenou, a warehouse loft smelling of turpentine and possibility, where she'd paint while I read Kerouac aloud, my voice weaving through the strokes of her brush. Once, she caught me watching her, charcoal smudged on her jaw, and froze. What? She demanded, half smile, half challenge. You're beautiful when you're lost in it, I said simply, and she flushed, turning back to the canvas like it could hide her. But the push-pull wore on me. I'd wake in my flat, staring at the ceiling frescoes peeling like old skin, wondering if I was chasing shadows. My friends back home texted check-ins, found your Spanish soulmate yet? And I'd reply with selfies of sangria sunsets, omitting the ache. Brianna's text lit up my phone at odd hours, a photo of a stray cat on her windowsill, captioned, your spirit animal. Or, missed you at market today. Got figs, just for you. One night, after a gallery opening in the Raval district, her first solo show, abstracts swirling with the passion of a bullring, I pulled her aside in the alley behind the space. The air was thick with cigarette smoke and the distant pulse of techno from a club. Brianna, talk to me. Really? She lit a clove cigarette, the flame illuminating the conflict in her eyes. I can't. It's complicated. My family, my past, they'd never get it. And I don't even know if I do. Then why the dinners? I pressed, stepping closer, the brick wall cool against my back. Months of this, candlelight and confessions. It's not just friendship. She exhaled smoke like a sigh, her free hand cupping my elbow. Because with you, it feels possible. Safe. But I'm scared, Amara. Scared of what it means. We stood there, the city's heartbeat thrumming around us, until she stubbed out the cigarette and pulled me into a hug that lingered on the edge of more. Come over tomorrow, she murmured into my hair. I'll make that fig tart you love. I went. Of course I did. And as we ate under the stars again, her foot nudging mine playfully, I let myself hope. Barcelona had a way of blurring lines, turning strangers into lifelines. But hope, I was learning, was a fragile thing, beautiful until the storm hit. The storm broke on a sweltering August afternoon, the kind where the siesta hums through the city like a collective sigh, shutters drawn against the relentless sun. I'd spent the morning at the Picasso Museum, wandering rooms filled with fragmented faces and blue period melancholy, trying to shake the fog from another late night with Brianna. We'd ended up at a chiringuito on the beach, feet in the sand, sharing pictures of Tinto de Verano until the stars wheeled overhead. Her laughter had been freer that night, her hand resting on my thigh as she recounted a disastrous attempt at fresco painting in Florence. I looked like a smurf, she giggled, and I'd laughed until my sides hurt, the sound mingling with the crash of waves. But as I left her place at dawn, stealing a coffee from her espresso maker, she'd watched me from the doorway, arms wrapped around herself like a shield. You're too good for this limbo, Amara, she'd said softly, and the words hung in the air like humidity. Now, back in my flat, I scrolled through her Instagram, candid shots of Barcelona's hidden corners, a bougainvillea-draped doorway in the Born, a street performer's fire dance in Placa Real. Her latest post was a sketch of two silhouettes against a sunset, hands almost touching. Caption, edges of almost. My chest tightened. Was that us? Or just her art's eternal tease? The buzzard jolted me. It was her, unannounced, holding a paper bag from the bakery down the street, warm and as dusted with powdered sugar. Surprise delivery, she grinned, but her eyes were shadowed, like she'd rehearsed this in the mirror. We ate on my balcony, the tiny space crammed with potted herbs and a hammock strung between railings. The view was pure magic, rooftops terracotta tiled, church spires piercing the haze, the distant shimmer of the sea. She talked fast, about a commission from a local gallery, a trip to Madrid she was considering solo. But midway through, her fork paused. Amara. There's something. My stomach dropped. Yeah. I've been seeing someone. The words landed like figs from her tree, heavy, inevitable. A guy. Javier. He's a photographer, does these incredible portraits of flamenco dancers. We met at the opening last week. The world tilted. Javier. Not a name I'd heard, not a face from her stories. Seeing him how? I managed, voice steady as rebar. Dates. Coffee. Nothing serious yet. She wouldn't meet my eyes, picking at the pastry flakes. But it's normal. Easy. He doesn't make me question everything. I laughed, sharp and brittle, the sound echoing off the stucco walls. Normal. After all this. I gestured wildly, the balcony, the city, us. You invite me to candlelit dinners for months, Brianna. You touch me like, God, like you mean it. And now this. Her face crumpled, blue eyes glistening. I told you, I don't like women. I tried, okay. With you, I tried to feel more. But it's not me. It can't be. Liar. The word escaped before I could cage it, raw as an open wound. I stood, pacing the narrow space, my heart hammering against my ribs. Those nights weren't experiments. You looked at me like I was your North Star. What about the sketches? The hugs that lasted too long. Was that all pity? No. She surged to her feet, grabbing my arm. Her grip was fierce, nails digging half-moons into my skin. It's because of you that I'm even trying this. Javier, he's safe. He doesn't unravel me like you do. I wrenched away, the hammock swaying like a pendulum. So I'm the unraveling. The thing you flirt with in the dark and deny in the light. Tears burned my eyes, hot and unbidden. I'd come to Spain to heal, not to shatter again. But here I was, 5,000 miles from home, loving a woman who couldn't love me back. Brianna sank into a chair, head in hands. My mom. She found out about a kiss in college. With a girl from art class. It broke her. You're throwing away your life, she said. And I believed her. For years. Until you. The confession hung between us, fragile as the sugar dusting the table. I wanted to hold her, to map the freckles on her nose with my lips, to whisper that families mended, that love wasn't a ledger. But betrayal stung fresh, Javier's name a splinter under my nail. Go, I said finally, voice cracking. Figure it out. But don't call me until you do. She left without a word, the door clicking shut like a full stop. I curled in the hammock, watching thunderheads gather over Montjuic, the sky bruising purple. That night, I walked the Ramblas alone, the crowds a blur of tourists and pickpockets. Street musicians strummed Besame Mucho, and I wondered if kisses could ever be just that, mucho, without the mucho pain. Days bled into weeks. Barcelona felt alien now, its beauty mocking. I threw myself into work, pitching designs to a boutique hotel chain in Ixample, their logo a swirl of modernist tiles inspired by Gaudi. Freelance kept me afloat, but the nights were killers, empty wine glasses on the counter, playlists of Joni Mitchell crooning about clouds and goodbyes. My reflection in the bathroom mirror looked gaunt, eyes shadowed like Brianna's abstracts. She texted once, "I'm sorry. Can we talk?" I deleted it, then regretted, then deleted the regret. Mutual friends, expats we'd met at language exchanges, nudged gently. Saw her at the market. She looks wrecked. But pride is a stubborn vine, twisting tighter. Then came the invitation I couldn't ignore, her gallery's fall show, Fractured Light, in a converted textile mill in Sants. The email was formal, press release attached, my name on the guest list. Your input shaped this, it read. I went, steeling myself in a black dress that hugged my curves, hair pinned in a loose chignon. The space buzzed, wine flowing, critics murmuring, spotlights carving drama from the shadows. Her pieces dominated, canvases the size of doorways, layered with impasto strokes in ochre and indigo. Women, always women, one with arms outstretched toward a receding horizon, another curled fetal amid shattered mosaic. And there, in the corner, the one that gutted me, two figures on a balcony, one reaching, the other retreating, candle flames flickering between. The title plate, Edges of Almost, Foray. I found her by the bar, emerald dress clinging like envy, laughing with a tall man, Javier, I presumed, his camera slung around his neck, dark curls framing an easy smile. She spotted me, color draining from her face. Amara. Nice work, I said, voice even. The balcony's a killer. Javier excused himself tactfully, and we were alone in the throng, the air thick with varnish and veiled glances. I ended it, she blurted. With him. Last week. It was. Wrong. My laugh was hollow. Convenient timing. No. Honest. She stepped closer, the scent of her lavender soap wrapping around me like regret. I went to Madrid. Alone. Walked the Prado for days, staring at Velázquez's women, strong, unseen. And all I could think was you. How you see me. Really see me. Tears pricked again, traitors. Brianna, I can't be your revelation on demand. It hurts too much. I know. Her hand hovered near mine, not touching. But if you'll let me, I want to try. For real. No more edges. The crowd swirled, a flamenco quartet striking up in the next room, guitar strings weeping. I wanted to run, to the airport, to anywhere but here. But her eyes held the sea's depth, and Barcelona's magic whispered second chances. One dinner, I said. No candles. Just truth. She nodded, relief flooding her features. Truth. We left together, weaving through the night market in Les courts, stalls hawking grilled sardines and handmade espadrilles. The air cooled, stars piercing the canopy of plane trees. At my door, she paused. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet," I replied, but my hand found hers, fingers lacing like they'd always known the way. Truth came slow, like the creep of tide over Barceloneta's sands. Our first real dinner was at a no-frills bodega in Gracia, formica tables sticky with sangria rings, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. No romance, just plates of tortilla española and croquetas de jamón, the kind of place where locals argued politics over coffee. Brianna arrived early, fidgeting with a napkin, her blonde hair tucked behind ears pierced with simple silver hoops. She traded her artist's bohemia for a plain white tee and jeans, looking every bit the Seattle girl trying to pass for local. "I broke up with Javier properly," she started, after the waiter plunked down our estrella. "Told him I was figuring out me. He was cool about it. Said he knew from the start I was elsewhere." I nodded, spearing a potato chunk. "And where's elsewhere land you?" She swallowed hard, eyes on her plate. "Scared shitless. But honest. I've felt this pull before. College, that girl, Lena. We kissed under the bleachers after a game, rain soaking us through. It was fireworks, Amara. But I shoved it down. Told myself it was a phase, a rebellion against my stepdad's Bible quotes and my mom's endless worry. Her vulnerability cracked something in me. I'd hidden too, dates with safe guys in college, boys who quoted Neruda but never saw the fire in my veins. My family. They're Catholic old school. Abuela still lights candles for my wild ways. But love's not a sin. It's the hiding that poisons. We talked until the owner shooed us out, locking up with a gruff buenos noches. The streets were alive with after-dinner strollers, children chasing fireflies, old couples arm in arm. Brianna walked me home, our shoulders brushing, the contact tentative but electric. At my door, she leaned in, not for a kiss, but a forehead touch, her breath steadying mine. "This feels right," she whispered. It did. Slowly, we rebuilt. Mornings at the Mercat de Saint Joseph, haggling for figs and manchego, her hand slipping into mine amid the crush of shoppers. Afternoons in her studio, me modeling for a portrait, perched on a stool in sunlight slanting through the loft's clerestory, her brush capturing the curve of my jaw with reverent strokes. "You're my muse," she'd say, and I'd roll my eyes, but inside, I bloomed. Conflicts lingered, though. Her family called, holidays looming, her mom's voice tinny over WhatsApp, "When are you coming home, Mija? Bring a nice boy." Brianna would pace after, chain-smoking on the fire escape, the city lights winking like conspirators. "They'd disown me," she'd mutter, and I'd pull her down beside me, tracing constellations on her palm. "Or they won't. But you're not alone anymore." My own doubts surfaced in quieter moments. Late-night texts from New York friends, spill on the mystery Spaniard. Forced me to name it, love. Was it too soon? Too fragile? One evening, after a row over nothing, her canceling a hike up Tibidabo for a deadline, I stormed out, wandering the labyrinth of the Barri Gothic until my feet blistered. I ended up at the fountain in Placa de Sant Philip Neri, pockmarked from Civil War bullets, water murmuring like forgotten prayers. She found me there at midnight, coat draped over her arm, face streaked with worry. "I'm sorry," she said, kneeling in the damp grass. "I get lost in the work sometimes. But you're my anchor." I cupped her face, thumbs brushing away tears. "And you're mine. But we can't keep dancing on knives." That night, we made promises, not grand vows, but small ones. Weekly check-ins over café con leche. Boundaries, like no hiding hands in public if it felt right. And therapy, she started sessions with an expat counselor in Izample, unpacking the Seattle scars while I journaled in my flat, words spilling like ink on wet paper. Fall deepened, leaves turning amber in the parks, the air crisp with the promise of Mistral winds. We took a train to Valencia, escaping for a weekend, Paella on the beach at Culera, her painting the orange groves at dawn while I snapped photos on my phone. One night, under a canopy of stars thick as spilled milk, she turned to me on the hotel balcony. "Amara Reyes, you turned my world upside down." "And right side up," I replied, pulling her close. Our first kiss was soft, inevitable, lips meeting like waves to shore, her hands framing my face with the tenderness of a brushstroke. No rush, no fire, just home. Back in Barcelona, the high came, but so did the inevitable crash. Her show in December, a retrospective at the Caixa Forum, drew crowds, critics praising the raw emotionality of her fractured women. But success amplified shadows. An interview with a local paper slipped, my inspirations. A deep friendship that's evolved into something profound. The reporter, sensing blood, probed, romantic. Brianna froze on the page, the printed quote I'd found crumpled in her trash. "It's complicated. Let's say it's teaching me to embrace the mess." Rage boiled when I confronted her, not at the words, but the hedging. "Friendship. After Valencia. After you said." I panicked, she shouted, in her studio, brushes clattering to the floor. Paint cans overturned, sapphire streaking the concrete like veins. "The world's not kind to us, Amara. One wrong word, and it's tabloid fodder." "My career." "Your career." I echoed, voice rising to match the wind rattling the windows. "What about us?" "I'm tired of being the profound something you whisper about when no one's listening." She deflated, sinking against the wall, color smeared on her cheek. "I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry. It's not you, it's the fear. The old voices." We fought like that for days, silent treatments over text, aborted coffees where we'd stare at our cups like enemies. I crashed with a friend in Saria, a graphic designer named Sophia who'd become my reluctant therapist. "Mi amor," she'd say, pouring me herbal tea, "love's not a straight line. It's a goddamn Picasso." But the fracture widened. Brianna's calls went to voicemail, mine to her echoed unanswered. Whispers reached me through the grapevine, sightings at bars with friends, her laugh too bright, too forced. One rainy Tuesday, I caved and showed up at her door, soaked and shaking. No answer. Peering through the window, I saw it, her silhouette on the couch, Javier's arm around her shoulders, his camera on the coffee table. Betrayal hit like a rogue wave, dragging me under. I fled to the port, the sea churning black under sodium lights, gulls crying like accusations. How could she? After the promises, the kisses tasting of salt and saffron. She found me at dawn, on the breakwater, waves crashing feet away. "Amara, wait." Her voice broke, hoarse from crying. Javier was a buffer, she confessed, a panicked call after the interview fallout, drinks turning to comfort. Nothing happened. I swear. I just needed to feel normal again. Normal, I spat, salt stinging my lips, from tears or spray, I couldn't tell. That's what this is. Crawling back to safe harbors because the real one's too rough. She dropped to her knees, gravel biting through her jeans. "No. You're the real one. The only one." I ended it again, told him to go. For good. Sobs racked her, raw and unfiltered. I hate this part of me. The coward. But I love you, Amara. Fiercely. If you'll have me. The sun crested, gilding the water gold. I thought of the women in her paintings, reaching, retreating, but always, in the end, turning toward light. Barcelona had taught me resilience, in its bombed-out plazas, its resilient gaudy whimsy. Love, too, was resilient, if we chose it. I pulled her up, our embrace fierce against the wind. "We fight for this," I said. "No more hiding. No more almosts. Deal, she murmured, lips brushing my temple. Months later, spring unfurled, azahar blossoms perfuming the air, festivals thumping with sardana dances. We moved in together, her loft in Pavelna becoming ours, my sketches mingling with her canvases, a shared easel by the window overlooking the factory chimneys now greened with ivy. Her family visited, awkward at first, her mom's eyes widening at our linked hands over paella, but softening over time, a tentative, "We're proud of you," Hija whispered in the kitchen. Mine flew in for pride, rainbow flags snapping along Passeig de Gracia, our float a riot of color and chants. Abuela crossed herself but hugged Brianna tight. "She makes you shine, Mija. That's blessing enough." We weren't perfect. Arguments flared like summer heat, over deadlines, doubts, the pull of old worlds. But we learned, apologies over candlelight, ironic, but ours, hands held in markets without care for stares. Brianna's next show, embraced fractures, sold out, portraits of us, woven into the cityscape, two women on a balcony, hands clasped, Barcelona sprawling below like a promise kept. In the end, love wasn't the absence of storms, but dancing through them, drenched, defiant, alive. And in the city of light and shadow, we'd found our rhythm.